Trojan War, c. 12th or 13th century BCE. The Trojan War, famously chronicled in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, is a legendary conflict between the city of Troy and a coalition of Greek states. Believed to have occurred in the 12th or 13th century BCE, the war began when Paris, a Trojan prince, abducted Helen, the wife of Spartan king Menelaus. This act led the Greeks to launch a massive expedition to retrieve her, resulting in a prolonged siege of Troy. The war is renowned for its heroic figures like Achilles, Hector, and Odysseus, and its mix of human drama and divine intervention. One of the most iconic moments is the Greeks' use of the Trojan horse, a giant wooden horse hiding soldiers inside. The Trojans brought it into their city, thinking it was a gift, only for the Greek soldiers to emerge at night and open the gates for their army, leading to Troy's downfall. The Trojan War is a timeless story of love, pride, and betrayal, influencing Western literature and art profoundly. Greco-Persian Wars, 499 to 449 BCE. The Greco-Persian Wars were a series of conflicts between the Persian Empire and Greek city-states, lasting from 499 to 449 BCE. These wars began when the Greek cities in Asia Minor, under Persian control, revolted, sparking a massive Persian campaign to subdue the Greek mainland. Major battles like Marathon, Thermopylae, and Salamis are legendary. At Marathon, 490 BCE, the Athenians achieved a surprising victory against a much larger Persian force. Thermopylae, 480 BCE, is famous for the heroic stand of King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans. The naval battle of Salamis, 480 BCE, saw the Greek fleet, led by Themistocles, decisively defeat the Persians, turning the tide of the war. These wars showcased Greek unity and military prowess, preserving their independence and shaping the future of Western civilization. The conflicts also highlighted the strategic and tactical innovations of the Greeks, leaving a lasting legacy on military history.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BCE. The Peloponnesian War was a protracted and destructive conflict between the two leading Greek city-states, Athens and Sparta, along with their respective allies. Lasting from 431 to 404 BCE, this war fundamentally reshaped the ancient Greek world. The war is often divided into three phases: the Archidamian War, the Peace of Nicias, and the Decelean War. The Archidamian War, 431 to 421 BCE, saw a series of annual invasions by Sparta into Athenian territory, while Athens used its powerful navy to raid the Peloponnesian coast. The Peace of Nicias, 421 to 413 BCE, was a temporary truce that ultimately failed. The final phase, the Decelean War, involved a renewed Spartan assault with support from Persia, leading to the eventual defeat of Athens. Key battles include the disastrous Athenian expedition to Sicily, 415 to 413 BCE, which ended in a crippling loss for Athens. The Spartan general Lysander played a crucial role in the final victory, particularly at the Battle of Aegospotami in 405 BCE, which decimated the Athenian navy. The war led to the downfall of Athens as the dominant Greek power, widespread destruction, and a shift in the balance of power toward Sparta. It also marked the end of the Golden Age of Greece, with long-lasting impacts on Greek politics and society. Punic Wars, 264 to 146 BCE. The Punic Wars were a series of three wars fought between Rome and Carthage from 264 to 146 BCE, marking one of the most significant and bitter rivalries of the ancient world. These wars were crucial in establishing Rome as a dominant power in the Mediterranean. The First Punic War, 264 to 241 BCE, was primarily a naval conflict over control of Sicily. Rome, initially inexperienced in naval warfare, built a powerful fleet and eventually forced Carthage to surrender Sicily, marking Rome's first overseas territory. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, is the most famous, marked by the Carthaginian general Hannibal's daring crossing of the Alps to invade Italy. Despite his victories at battles such as Cannae, Hannibal could not secure a decisive victory. The Roman general Scipio Africanus eventually defeated him at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, leading to Carthage's severe defeat and loss of its empire. The Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, culminated in the complete destruction of Carthage. Rome besieged and razed the city, ending Carthaginian power and securing Roman dominance in the region. The Punic Wars significantly expanded Roman territory and influence, paving the way for the Roman Empire's rise. They also demonstrated Rome's military adaptability and strategic prowess. 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453. The 100 Years' War was a prolonged series of conflicts between England and France, lasting from 1337 to 1453. This war was primarily fought over claims to the French throne and territorial disputes. The war began when Edward III of England claimed the French crown, challenging the rule of the Valois king, Philip VI. The conflict is notable for significant battles like Crécy, 1346, and Agincourt, 1415, where English longbowmen decimated French knights. The war also saw the rise of iconic figures such as Joan of Arc, whose leadership and inspiration were crucial in lifting the siege of Orleans in 1429, turning the tide in favor of France. The war was marked by phases of intense fighting and periods of relative peace. The Treaty of Troyes, 1420, temporarily consolidated English control over northern France, but the French resurgence, aided by Joan of Arc and the strategic leadership of Charles VII, gradually pushed the English back. The war effectively ended with the Battle of Castillon in 1453, solidifying French victory. The 100 Years' War had profound impacts, including the development of national identities in England and France, advances in military tactics and technology, and significant social and economic changes due to the long duration and devastation of the conflict. Wars of the Roses, 1455 to 1487. The Wars of the Roses were a series of dynastic conflicts fought in England between the houses of Lancaster and York from 1455 to 1487. These wars were named after the symbols of the two houses, the Red Rose of Lancaster and the White Rose of York. The conflict began due to weak leadership under King Henry VI, leading to power struggles between rival noble factions. The war saw numerous battles, shifting alliances, and a high turnover of kings. Key battles include St. Albans, 1455, Towton, 1461, and Bosworth Field, 1485. Edward IV of York initially seized the throne in 1461 but faced ongoing challenges. The Lancastrian cause was briefly revived under Henry VI, but Edward IV reclaimed the throne in 1471. The conflict culminated in the Battle of Bosworth Field, where Henry Tudor, Henry VII, defeated Richard III of York, ending the wars and establishing the Tudor dynasty. The Wars of the Roses significantly impacted the English monarchy and nobility, leading to the centralization of power under the Tudors. It also marked the end of the medieval period in England and the beginning of the transition to the Renaissance. 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648. The 30 Years' War, lasting from 1618 to 1648, was a brutal conflict primarily within the Holy Roman Empire. Initially sparked by religious tensions between Protestants and Catholics, it quickly expanded into a broader power struggle involving many European nations. The war began with the defenestration of Prague and included key phases like the Bohemian Revolt and interventions by Denmark, Sweden, and France. Major battles such as White Mountain, 1620, and Breitenfeld, 1631, were significant turning points. The war caused widespread destruction, famine, and disease, deeply affecting civilian populations. It ended with the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which established state sovereignty and significantly altered the political landscape of Europe, reducing the power of the Holy Roman Empire and paving the way for modern nation-states. Napoleonic Wars, 1803 to 1815. The Napoleonic Wars, from 1803 to 1815, were a series of conflicts involving Napoleon Bonaparte's French Empire against various European coalitions. These wars followed the French Revolution and reshaped Europe. Napoleon's military genius led to significant victories, such as Austerlitz, 1805, but also notable defeats like his disastrous invasion of Russia, 1812, and his final defeat at Waterloo, 1815. The wars involved major campaigns across Europe, including the Peninsular War in Spain and Portugal. The Napoleonic Wars ended with Napoleon's exile to Elba, his brief return during the 100 Days, and his ultimate exile to St. Helena after Waterloo. The Congress of Vienna, 1814–1815, re-established a balance of power in Europe, restoring monarchies and aiming to prevent future large-scale conflicts. These wars had a lasting impact on European politics, military tactics, and the spread of revolutionary ideas. American Civil War, 1861–1865. The American Civil War, fought from 1861 to 1865, was a pivotal conflict between the Northern states, the Union, and the Southern states, the Confederacy, that had seceded from the Union. The primary cause was the deep-seated issue of slavery and states' rights. The war began with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in April 1861. Major battles included Antietam, the bloodiest single-day battle in American history, Gettysburg, a turning point that halted the Confederate advance into the North, and Sherman's march to the sea, which devastated the South's infrastructure. Key figures included President Abraham Lincoln, who aimed to preserve the Union and later emancipated the slaves, and Confederate General Robert E. Lee, known for his military prowess. The Union's advantages in industrial capacity and manpower eventually led to its victory. The war ended in April 1865 with Lee's surrender to Union General Ulysses South Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The Civil War resulted in the abolition of slavery, with the 13th Amendment, significant loss of life, and profound social and political changes, shaping the future of the United States. World War I, 1914–1918. World War I, also known as the Great War, lasted from 1914 to 1918 and involved many of the world's great powers, divided into the Allies and the Central Powers. The war was triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary, leading to a web of alliances and conflicts. The war featured trench warfare, with brutal conditions and significant battles such as the Somme and Verdun. New military technologies like machine guns, tanks, and chemical weapons made the conflict particularly deadly. The United States joined the Allies in 1917, providing a crucial boost. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, which imposed heavy reparations and territorial losses on Germany. World War I resulted in the fall of empires, redrawn borders, and significant political and social upheaval. It set the stage for major changes in the 20th century, including the rise of fascism and the lead-up to World War II. World War II, 1939–1945. World War II, spanning from 1939 to 1945, was a global conflict involving most of the world's nations, divided into the Allies and the Axis powers. It began with Germany's invasion of Poland, leading Britain and France to declare war on Germany. Major events include the Battle of Britain, Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, and Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, which led to the United States entering the war. Significant battles included Stalingrad, Midway, and the Normandy landings, D-Day. Key figures were Adolf Hitler, Germany; Winston Churchill, UK; Franklin D. Roosevelt, USA; Joseph Stalin, Soviet Union; and Emperor Hirohito, Japan. The war saw unprecedented destruction and loss of life, including the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were murdered. The war ended in Europe with Germany's unconditional surrender in May 1945, and in the Pacific after the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to Japan's surrender in August 1945. World War II profoundly reshaped the global order, leading to the United Nations creation, the Cold War, and significant geopolitical changes. Cold War, 1947 to 1991. The Cold War was a prolonged period of geopolitical tension between the United States and its allies, the Western Bloc, and the Soviet Union and its allies, the Eastern Bloc, lasting from 1947 to 1991. It was characterized by ideological conflict between capitalism and communism. Key events included the Berlin blockade, the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The Cold War also saw numerous proxy wars, espionage, and the space race, highlighted by the U.S. landing on the Moon in 1969. The Cold War ended with the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, leading to the emergence of the United States as the world's sole superpower and significant political changes in Eastern Europe, including the fall of the Berlin Wall and the reunification of Germany. The Cold War had a lasting impact on international relations, military strategy, and global political dynamics. Korean War, 1950 to 1953. The Korean War, fought from 1950 to 1953, was a conflict between North Korea, supported by China and the Soviet Union, and South Korea, supported by the United Nations, primarily the United States. The war began when North Korean forces, backed by Soviet equipment, invaded South Korea. Key battles included the Battle of Pusan Perimeter, the Incheon Landing, and the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. General Douglas MacArthur led UN forces in a successful counteroffensive, but Chinese intervention pushed the conflict into a bloody stalemate near the 38th parallel. The war ended in an armistice in 1953, with Korea remaining divided at the 38th parallel. The Korean War had significant implications for Cold War geopolitics, solidifying the divide between North and South Korea and establishing the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ. Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. The Vietnam War was a prolonged conflict from 1955 to 1975 between Communist North Vietnam, supported by the Soviet Union and China, and South Vietnam, supported by the United States and other anti-communist allies. The war was part of the broader Cold War struggle. Major events included the Tet Offensive, a massive surprise attack by North Vietnamese forces, and the My Lai Massacre, which galvanized anti-war sentiment. The war featured extensive guerrilla warfare, aerial bombings, and significant civilian casualties. The United States withdrew its forces in 1973 following the Paris Peace Accords, and in 1975, North Vietnamese forces captured Saigon, effectively ending the war and leading to the reunification of Vietnam under communist control. The Vietnam War had a profound impact on American society and politics, leading to widespread protests and a re-evaluation of U.S. foreign policy.